Do you know which Universal Studios attraction closed down because it burned down? Welcome to our top 10 missed Universal attractions. From attractions that are completely retired to the ones we can find at some parks. Let's dive in.
Fastpass facts.
We can't deny the importance that Shrek has had in the past couple of decades, and Universal knew this. So in 2003, Hollywood, Orlando, and Japan opened their own Shrek 4D attractions. This attraction was a 4D simulator ride with motion-based effects that took place right after the first film's events. It follows Shrek and Donkey as they attempt to rescue Princess Fiona from Lord Farquaad's ghost, who plots to capture her. It takes guests on a journey alongside Shrek and Donkey during their rescue mission. The attraction also opened in Singapore and even Movie Park Germany and Warner Bros. Movie World in Australia. Since then, the attraction has closed in almost every park where we used to find it. The only two remaining attractions can be found at Universal Studios Japan and Singapore. Nickelodeon Studios was an iconic attraction that opened with Universal Studios Orlando back in 1990. The attraction consisted of a 40-minute tour through the real sets where Nick's programs and series were actually filmed. After that, guests were able to visit the Gal Kitchen, where they could experience how Nickelodeon's famous green slime was made. At the end of the tour, guests were taken into the Game Lab, where they could participate in real Double Dare-style challenges that were being prototyped so they could be used in the show. In 2005, Nick Studios closed its doors because the studio was not functional anymore. It remained abandoned for a while until it became an also-retired Blue Man Group VIP experience. It is sad to think that such a fantastic part of the 90s and many people's childhoods ended the way it did. And it is a massive loss for a whole generation who would love to be able to have this attraction back. King Kong Encounter was a scene inside the world-famous Universal Studios Hollywood studio tour. It opened back in 1986, and it had one of the most complex animatronics of all time. The 30-foot-tall animatronic was so detailed that it even had banana-scented breath. The attraction broke new ground and paved the way for the complex-themed attractions of today, and was the inspiration behind Confrontation at Universal Studios Florida. The attraction took guests into New York City, where Kong had gone on a rampage. Authorities were not able to stop him, and guests came face to face with the ape. After Kong shook the bridge the tram was on, guests were able to escape Kong and exited the soundstage just in time. Sadly, in 2008, a fire broke out in the backlot of Universal Studios, and the King Kong Encounter show building was utterly destroyed and gone forever. It was replaced by a new experience called King Kong 360 3D. Terminator 2 3D was once considered one of the most revolutionary special effects attractions at the time. The attraction opened in 1996, and it was situated right after the events of Terminator 2, Judgment Day. It took guests into Cyberdyne's headquarters to present their newest technological advances. While showing the new tech, Sarah and John Connor appeared, warning guests about Skynet and the future war against the machines. Guests entered the auditorium, but again, the Connors interrupted, this time confronted by a T-1000 Terminator. After an exciting action sequence and the destruction of Skynet, the show ended. The attraction was a huge success and opened at Universal Studios Hollywood and Japan. But as time passed, the future caught up with it. In 2012, it closed its doors in Hollywood to be replaced by Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. And in 2019 in Orlando to be replaced by the Bourne Stuntacular. But we can still find it at Universal Studios Japan in the New York area. E.T. Adventure is one of the most iconic Universal rides. It first opened in Orlando, followed by Hollywood, and then Japan. This attraction takes guests aboard a bicycle through a portal that takes them to the Green Planet, where they meet Botanicus, who urges them to save E.T.'s friends. Using E.T.'s healing touch, guests travel through the Green Planet, reviving E.T.'s friends and celebrating. This part of the ride is light, colorful, and beautiful, even if some of the animatronics can look pretty creepy. The ride is a classic. The story and the ride system work so well together, making it one of the best dark rides ever. Sadly, the ride closed in Hollywood, where it was replaced by Revenge of the Mummy, and in Japan, where it was replaced by Space Fantasy. But not all is lost, because we can still visit the one in Orlando, and we bet that one is here to stay. Dueling Dragons was unique in its time. From the queue, you could tell that this ride was going to be epic. It took place inside a ruined castle that had been overtaken by dragons. As guests entered the castle, they would be introduced to the story by Merlin, using an enchanted stained glass window. The coaster's track length was full of twisting, turning, looping, and dropping at high-intensity speeds. And while individually the coasters were pretty standard, the idea of combining two inverted coasters with timed and dueling features was completely new. Not only that, but having a highly themed storytelling environment around the coasters was a huge added plus. But in 2007, when the Wizarding World of Harry Potter was announced, Universal decided to change the roller coaster to Dragon Challenge, and it was themed around the Triwizard Cup. After that, Dragon's Challenge closed in 2017, and gave way to Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. Ghostbusters is a hugely loved franchise, and when Universal opened, they created Ghostbusters Spooktacular. This show was full of animatronics and special effects. An amazing show, not only for fans for the franchise, but for any movie fanatic. During the show, guests could see an endless lineup of animatronics. This show was a huge success, mainly because of its animatronics and the ingenious use of the Pepper's Ghost effect. The best part was the gigantic animatronic of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. This animatronic was one of the biggest animatronics created at the time, at 22 feet tall. The show had some changes for a few years, until it finally closed to make room for Twisted Ride It Out. Sadly, Universal decided to destroy all the animatronics, and the only thing that remains of the show is the facade, which is used as a part of the Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket coaster tracks. This show is undoubtedly one of the most missed by Universal Studios fans. Back to the Future the ride is one of the most beloved and missed Universal Studios rides. It opened in Orlando, followed by Hollywood and Japan. The ride took place after the events of Back to the Future 3. Doc Brown and his family have established the Institute of Future Technology, and he's inviting guests to try their newest experiment, a new 8-seat DMC-12 model DeLorean. But Biff infiltrates the Institute and steals the DeLorean. So guests go on a pursuit through the Hill Valley of 2015, the Ice Age, and even into the heart of an active volcano that existed in the prehistoric Hill Valley. In the end, guests help capture Biff, and all is well. But again, the future caught up, and 2015 was rapidly approaching. So the attraction closed in 2007 at both Orlando and Hollywood to be replaced by the Simpsons ride. It wasn't until 2016 that the Japan version of the ride closed to become Minion Mayhem, and Back to the Future was retired forever. In our opinion, Confrontation was the perfect ride. It had special effects, incredible stages, immersion from the queue, and best of all, giant animatronics. So it's not surprising that it is so high on this list. Confrontation debuted together with Universal Studios in 1990. Although its debut was a disaster due to thousands of technical failures, it managed to recover from this and remained the king of the attractions for 12 years in a row. The ride placed the guests in full action during Kong's attack on New York City. This ride was like King Kong Encounter, but on steroids. There were fires, destroyed buildings, pyrotechnic effects, helicopters, and two giant and terrifying animatronic Kongs, both scaled to an astounding 40 feet tall. These were two of the most lifelike animatronics ever developed. Unfortunately, all good things have to end, and Universal made one of the worst mistakes by closing it permanently in 2002, and 2 years later, replacing it with Revenge of the Mummy. Don't get us wrong, Revenge of the Mummy is an excellent attraction, but we wish they could have opened it elsewhere so we didn't have to lose Confrontation. We will miss the monkey forever. Jaws is considered by theme park fans to be one of the biggest losses in theme park history. While the ride had one of the most disastrous openings in history, it became one of the best rides in the park when it opened properly. Words aren't enough to describe why this attraction was formidable, but we will try. The attraction was so immersive that it made the terror of being attacked by a killer shark real. The ride's story was set in Amity Island, where a sailor decided to create a tour to take guests to the sites where the attacks had taken place. It all seems to be going well, until the skippers get an emergency call for help, and here's where guests could see the destroyed remains of a boat and a shark's fin going under the boat. From here on out, the attacks from the shark don't seem to stop. The effects, the atmosphere, the animatronics, and everything else made this attraction one of the best ever created by Universal. So it is no wonder that it is one of the most missed, if not the most missed of all. While Diagon Alley is amazing, we can't help but feel sad that Jaws was closed to be replaced by it. Fortunately, Jaws lives on in Universal Studios Japan, and we hope it will continue terrorizing guests for a long time. This is not all. If you want to know more about these attractions, click on these videos where we assemble the best theme park creators to talk about these incredible attractions. Infinite thanks to our Cyberducks for making this video possible. If you want to know how to become one, check out our Patreon.